Hey guys, this is Alicia Blue, and you're listening to Interview Under Fire.
There's a lover, a sister, buried beneath. There's a whisper of something no one can see.
All right, everyone out there, I want to welcome you all back to a brand new episode of Interview Under Fire. This is your beloved host, In Sunny, today, and I would like to welcome an exceptionally talented individual, a rising indie folk singer-songwriter in Alicia Blue. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. Alicia, it's an honor. Thank you so much for joining our IUF series today. You know, this has definitely been an exciting and yet important and busy start to the new year for you, leading up to the drop of your alluring, magnificent EP, Inner Child Work Part 2. Let me begin by commending you on all the well-deserved recognition your work has been getting so far, especially with those singles that dropped. Best Hands, Young, I Want It Faster. Shout out to the other publications like Atwood Magazine, Billboard, Under the Radar. The list goes on, and they mentioned you. And before we get to all that and beyond, right? Let's pump the brakes. Let's take a deep breath. I'm talking a lot because I'm so excited. Let me ask you a very important question. How are you? Because I don't think I even asked you that. I know it's been quite the last 12 months from releasing music. I know you just moved recently. Have you had the chance to just stop for a moment? Maybe even take this time right now that just take this all in, kind of just looking back on where you've been.
That's
I'm
such
gonna
a
drink.
great
I'm
question.
gonna drink coffee to that. Actually,
I know.
cheers.
Cheers. Same. This is also decaf because I can't have caffeine because it makes me crazy. But
I have to be crazy for this, because mine has
no, I
caffeine.
mean,
Maybe
I
decaf
wish
will
it
for
were.
me for the evening.
But yeah, no. That's such a great question. I don't think I've really taken that break in terms of wow. Okay, let's look back at everything. I admit I'm a pretty forward thinking person, but I
Yeah.
think it's so important to be able to do what you're asking. And I think one reason and I think I've said this in like 90% of my interviews, and I don't know why it just naturally arises, but I I walk in the woods every day. So there's like a quiet time there where I get to like really be with myself and unplug from everything. So I think that's kind of what just keeps me feeling great about forwardness
Yeah.
and moving forward. But yeah, it's been incredible to when I have allowed myself to just look back and go, "Hey, wow, I can't believe I'm here," and then part 2 comes out very soon. So yeah.
Now, for Inner Child Work Part 2, did you have a release date? I know you moved it around a little bit here and there.
Yes.
I don't know if you can announce it
Yes.
yet, so I want to leave that up to
I
you.
don't think I'm allowed to announce it, but I do believe because it's moved, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
say it, but I
Okay.
do believe I believe a late February, early March will be for sure
Yeah, and
when to
by
look
the
for.
by the time this episode drops, we're actually gonna release it around that time. So it's like
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
we're kind of talking into the future right now, I think, and it'll be
Hey
released
guys.
on Magnetic Moon Records, by the way, and shout out to them. Now, Alicia, I want to wind the clock back here, okay, to 2019, maybe even before that, because for fans and listeners who may not know, you are originally from Los Angeles, and here's the thing about Los Angeles: that's actually my second home. I went to film school out there,
Oh,
and
awesome.
near the Fullerton area. I'm gonna quote you here. You said, "Writing is my favorite thing to do on this earth." If you could briefly, talk about that defining moment in your life that led to the inception of Alicia Blue, right? Into who you are today. Because, like I said, you've been on quite the journey. I feel like it's important for people to hear your story as much as they can. This is not going to be just on YouTube, Alicia. This is going to be on all major streams out there for the world to hear. When did you come to the realization that this is what you wanted to do with your life? Because I feel like it went by in a blink.
Yeah, so I my dream was to be like the next Jack Kerouac, a famous poet. And I'd
Yeah.
never played music in my life. I was always a fan. I was a huge Bob Dylan fan. I never thought I could do it. I didn't there was no music in this I went to private school and there was no music curriculum there. Um nor in my family or household. So um, it came to me in my last year of college. So I studied literature, and but yeah, there in my last 2 years of high school, I had it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I had a kind of Dead Poets Society experience with my teacher, my English teacher. It was really quite visceral and in an amazing way. Shout out to Scott Doval.
We're gonna
He
do a lot
actually,
of shout outs on this
yeah, he
conversation.
just
So
published
shout out to
his
him.
first novel, so I'm so proud of him. But he made me think I was somebody, that I, had what it took to to feel what I needed to feel, to say what I needed to say that could be maybe useful
Hmm.
as an artist. And so then in my last year of, so then fast forward to college, the dream is to publish these poetry books, and I meet an old soul singer, and then everything changed. And I was like, I'm going to learn about music. I'm going to take all this poetry and put them in songs just like Bob Dylan did, and make people think. And um, that was gosh, that was like 10 years ago. And then
Wow.
maybe like, so you have to like learn how to play somewhat and how to sing. So I spent some time doing that, a couple of years doing that, more than a couple of years. And so I think around 2015, I did like my first baby open mic singing cover songs. Um, the soul Malcolm was the musician, the soul singer who had really kind of taught me about singing and stuff. So I was doing like more
Yeah.
like soul throwback soul like things, and it really wasn't working. It wasn't the poetic true kind of part of my personality wasn't really shining, and my voice is soulful but not a soul singer's voice. And so nothing was really resonating with the world. And then in late 2017, I went to an open mic and then had written my first folk song. It was like a poem, and I had a boyfriend. He's like, no one's gonna listen to that, and he wanted like to see Alicia do like more commercial things. And then I sang that at an open mic, and like the audience just shut up. It was like, when you can get through and quiet the room. And I was like, yep, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then I think, so then in 2018, I recorded 5 songs, and one of them was Magma. And they're like the first ones I'd
Yeah.
written. And then that was like picked up. I got an email from Starbucks being like, can we use your song in our stores? And I was like, what the fuck? And so, yeah, that's that year and a half of like, okay, I'm putting these poems to songs. I sing them, people listen, and then getting that little tap on the shoulder from the universe, like, okay, you can do this. Yeah.
And then I know you mentioned him briefly, but the late Malcolm Clark Hayes Jr. That's an
Yeah.
important name that means a
Yeah.
lot to you. I also want to give a shout out to, because I read your story. It's fascinating, and it was just I found myself, like I said, I told you that I went to film school. I'm a movie buff. I like to insert myself when it comes to these amazing stories, and these are real stories. Like, and shout out to Nong and
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm butchering the name, but apologize. But
That's right.
those two
That's right.
people, I know they mean a lot to you. I don't know if you wanted to talk about them a little bit more, because you wouldn't be where you are today if it wasn't for these two people. And you found them at at a Thai restaurant, if I'm not mistaken, and you met up with this person, Nong, who I'm talking about, and then you performed with this person too. And isn't it it's like a storybook. Like you're finding yourself along the way, and then these people who actually find the best in you pull it out that you didn't even know you had. I love that, and it's what I'm trying to say is it's almost like you can't do it by yourself. Of course the inspiration is there, but then when people believe in you, you know that's an important thing too. So but anyway, I just wanted to mention those people because I know they mean a lot to you, for people who don't know.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it was like nerve wracking, like getting up on stage for the first time. Did you have any experience performing in front of people prior to all of that? Like open mics? Like, all
Um,
right, here you go. Go and do it. Oh, all right.
when I was a little girl, I was a dancer.
Yeah.
So that was like in front of people. That's nothing like using your voice in front of people. That's to me dancing, not like, I wasn't competitive or anything like that, but using my body to do something beautiful was much easier for me versus saying what's in your head and then using your voice
Yeah.
to do that. That was really hard for me at first.
Do you still dance?
And I think no, I was just telling my friend that like it's crazy how much I've like lost lost the ballet was like my favorite, but that's a whole nother conversation. But um, yeah, it's saying your truth. I think that was a huge part of my process of coming into myself was overcoming that. I almost think like I my like whatever self that's running this ship on this planet
Hmm.
that uh isn't my personality, but it's just kind of like the guide. I feel like they chose music so that I could just like knock down all these walls that needed to be knocked down. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's you, Alicia, and um I do want to talk about also performing on stage, right? I want to mention that really cool tour you did with the districts this past fall. And whether we're a fan of this or a performer, live music is, it's in a different form of art in what we do. And the touring live and the live music experience for you personally. I ask this a lot to my guests because I get a different answer every time and a unique answer because here's the thing. This is something that was pretty much stripped away from us 3 years ago, right? I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, yeah, it was cool to stay home for like the first month or so. I got to pick up on shit that I just left behind. It's like I took up baking. I never baked in my entire life, and now I know how to bake cookies. Shout out to my sister, by the way. But the question I want to get at, Alicia, considering how much touring is going on now lately. You just went on a tour, for example, especially when this was something that was stripped away from us. Would you say, because how you experience it, your interaction with the crowd, that the thing you just described me about being them, they're so quiet after you read your piece out to them, it was just, you could hear a pin drop. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about it. Would you say that you have a newfound appreciation of that setting now, considering, we didn't know where we're going to be 3 years ago, because there's touring, there's fans of your work, there's the people you interact with, the crowds. I want to ask about that. Like I know I have a
Yeah.
newfound appreciation of it, considering I go to a show as much as I can now these days.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think my first show back was in LA, and I was that time period where like things opened up and then they closed again. So I got in the first opening. I got in and did a show, and I was at the Hotel Cafe, and there were like 100 people there, and Hotel Cafe is a smaller venue, so it was like
I, I,
packed,
I
and
know exactly what that is.
yeah, and so it was like really stunning to have like the joy in the room was insane. I mean, it was like, and I had all this new music because I'd been traveling to Nashville to do all these writing sessions. And so, yeah, it was kind of like, you know, all the work I think everyone had done on a personal level in this like lockdown. And then walking into a room and sharing it with each other, even though, I mean, obviously, like I'm the one on stage and singing the songs and whatnot, but I feel like people's readiness to be part of that, like it just felt like everyone was there in the room for a reason. And it was just like joy. And I don't know, it was insane. And then, yeah, the tour. So I mean, we were just talking about like, I kind of am just getting started, but that was like my first, like tour where I was supporting a band that has like a really nice like crazy loyal fan base. And so the districts, like that was insane. Like that was, I don't know, it was glorious. I can't even describe how it was my first time really being uh in a room where like humans I didn't know, because most of them were districts fans getting to know me. It was like an
Yeah.
introduction, and they were just like ready for it and like so down to, and because I make very different music from the districts, but also it's complementary, in some way. And so um yeah, it was just an honor. And I mean, that's not even the right, I mean, yes, an honor, but like just joy, like more joy. I don't know, and like they have a lot of really cool young fans, and like I love, yeah, I don't know, I love the earnestness and sincerity of their desire to be there.
Man, if you ever want to do a tour, I got some really close friends who are in bands and they do tours around like Oklahoma up to Kansas,
Cool.
and they are along the lines of the same genre of music that you are. And it's a band called Brother Rabbit, and the lead singer, her name is Susie. And as I was listening to your voice, I'm like, man, how great would it be if you and her did like a duet together or something? And anyway, that's just wishful thinking to me. Shout out to Brother Rabbit also. And aside from the music, Alicia, I always am, intrigued to hear about, other aspects of an artist's life that potentially feed into their creativity and personality. Of course, the last thing we want to do is revisit 2020, but you dropped your debut album in 2020, for crying out loud, Alicia. That is a great album. And people who don't know, Brave Bird, that dropped in April of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. The song Color just hits me like right here. I absolutely love that song. Anyway, and is staying
So
busy doing that.
interesting. I have had people, I don't know what it is, but this year I've had like five people be like, that song Color. And I just like,
Really? Wow.
since 2020 to now, like no one's ever talked to me about that song. And this year there's been like five, I've heard like from recently, and I'm like, what is going on with that song? It's so fascinating.
Hey, I'm just saying, you're finding yourself along the way, right? These things that are coming up,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna introduce, when I meet Susie. Susie lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm gonna introduce her to your music because I know she would love everything that you're doing, and it's just
Cool.
a sense of inspiration of what you're doing. But anyone who hasn't listened to Bravebird, please go. It's on YouTube. It's on, I believe, it's on the streaming platform to Spotify. Listen to that album. It's going to be over in a blink because of how damn good it is. You know, now you dropped that album, but aside from the music, I always think about, did that time for you, Alicia, did that open up new things for you that you may not have discovered before about yourself? That you can take with you going forward. Because staying home, it can really get to you, and especially where you're not even in the same city you are now back then. I know that I grew a lot. I learned a lot about myself during that time. I learned a lot about my friends at that time. And some of
Oh
them I
yeah.
lost, some of them are still here. It's a crazy thing to think about, but here we are. Somehow we aged 3 years. I don't know that ever rings. I'm still mentally getting over 2019. I don't know if you would say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know it's very bizarre. Like especially being in 23 right now, it's like no,
There's
it's
no
like
way it's 2023.
there's a good 2 years that didn't count, like in
Right.
terms of aging or like yeah, like internal evolution, yeah. But yeah, I had made Brave Bird before the pandemic, and then the release date literally was like in when lockdown was announced, or just like thereafter, and incredibly disappointing, incredibly uh, excruciatingly painful to obviously be one of millions of humans whose plans didn't go as expected. It was also coincided with the day that I was supposed to do a Zoom performance, or like because that's what was happening, uh, for the album release since we were in lockdown. I actually got diagnosed with appendicitis, and like
Oh
had to go to
no.
the hospital and stayed in the hospital for like a week and took like 2 months to recover. So it was this strange. The universe was like, yeah, like this isn't marketing time. This isn't
Like,
a
slow
time for
down. It's weird how that works out sometimes. I mean, I don't mean it works out, but I feel the same way. When there's something
really
big
mind
coming
blowing.
up, all of a sudden my body decides, all right, Sonny, this is the time to just, no, not the time. You don't have to hurt
Yeah,
me while you're at it. So I'm glad you're okay. That's
me
scary
too.
though.
It was
But
so intense, and also like the hospitals when during those times like no
yeah,
one was allowed in, and
jeez.
it was like I remember being like the doctors being like you can't go down that hallway because that's the COVID patients, and like we didn't, and that COVID was so new, it was like I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna, I could catch COVID on top of this infection I have and just like bounce out of here, like interesting. So like it made everything so sorry to answer your question, like
No, you're good.
it made everything in like an incredible zoomed out perspective, and I was on a fast track to who am I, and in the end, if I died tomorrow, what does it need to sound like, and what do I need to do for my career to do it, you know?
Hmm.
And so like through my recovery and soon thereafter, I got my first manager, which was an incredible blessing. We're still working together today, and it's been um, cataclysmic. That's why I was able to go to Nashville and work with Lincoln Parish for inner child work and write with John Paul White, all of the facilitation that my manager and team has been able to do. You know, yeah, I had the body of work for them to present, to create the new work, and see who was interested in collaborating, and it's been crazy.
Now let's get to inner child work. You mentioned those names, and you may want to finish your drink here because I got a lot to say. Okay, this new EP, part two, by the way, drops in the spring on Magnetic Moon Records. Magnetic Moon Records, by the way. I'm going to talk about this for a second because this is a growing label. I feel like it was founded by artist Rob Garza. Um, this is like a new era for you, Alicia. This makes you label mates with bands like 40 Feet Tall, which I think they're going to be coming on our show
Amazing.
down the line. Toby, Raquel Jones. What's the feeling like kicking off this new part of your career with the label like Magnetic Moon? Because I feel like that's an important thing to ask as well.
Yeah, it's saying, just letting you know how I started working with a manager and then started working with a label thereafter. That was pretty far out, and something I'd never done. And it was actually really, in some sense, difficult to do because I had to like let go of so much of the work I was used to doing
Yeah,
myself, like especially preparing for Brave Bird and funding it myself. And like, I mean, funding a record when you're really, working on being an artist is very difficult because you're not working a 9 to 5. You're working on your guitar or your voice or your songs, and working in between that. And so um yeah, letting go, not letting go of creative control, but letting go of the business control was, makes me kind of giggle. It's like that's all we really want as artists, and then when it comes, you're like, oh god, this is so uncomfortable, like to let them do their job.
yeah.
And so that's been an incredibly amazing journey. And like the trust that I have with the label heads and Rob and Brian Ross, and the team they have with them, Natalia, you've probably spoken to, and Christine, like, and it's just crazy to have a team and to have support that way. It's incredible.
It's so rad because I started my own record label like 10 years ago with my brothers. We wanted to give artists who didn't get a chance with other people, and so I have experience in that. So I wanted to ask about that because that's an important thing. I'm always all about helping people and getting to where they want to get. Now before we so shout out to Magnetic Moon again. It's gonna be a great chapter from here on out. Now before we get into this core of this EP, right? Part two. People are probably asking, like, part two. Why is Sunny saying part two? Because this is the follow up to your 2022 EP, Inner Child Work Part One. I went back and heard that. I mean, talking about like flawless prequels. Again, you're going to talk about Star Wars. That's a whole different conversation when it comes to prequels. uh, Dog Days in LA. Jesus Christ. That really hit me emotionally because, like I said, LA is my second home, and that music video. I'm trying not to get too emotional because when you watch a music video like that at like 3 a.m. in the morning and you're reminiscing about LA, and I have friends out there and who I'm planning to visit this summer, it just like it makes you do nothing but either drive down the I-5 or drive down the PCH and just hear that song like with the
Aw.
windows down as the sun is like setting, and I'm really setting the mood here, but there's no mistake why Atwood magazine, like I mentioned, they labeled you as one of the artists to watch in 2021. But hell, Alicia, I think you're an artist to watch, period. But here you are, we're in this new year, this new album that's coming out, this new chapter, like I mentioned. When you hear recognition like that, Alicia, you know, do you feel pressure? Or I mean, do you ever feel pressure for you when you sit down and write again for new songs when these publications are just applauding your work? It sounds like you're a really humble person. I feel like that's something I can take with me going forward. But I wonder about that.
Yeah, I don't well, I'm still a baby in my career, so I won't speak too soon, but I would say no, I don't because um I
We
probably
need
have
the we need the wings for this interview.
I know.
We got to
Yes.
get that on that high.
I don't think the pressure that an accolade in a publication could ever compare to. I wouldn't even call it pressure, but there's an element of pressure in it that the expectations that I can put on myself, they're already there. Um, the forward thinking thing, like
Mhm.
I already, you know, can see or imagine what I want, the next two records, how I want them to go. So I'm already um, almost like I'm not so worried about beating what I've done because I know it's already in evolution. So it's not about beating beating this record with the next one and making something even better. It's just more, I know that if I'm changing, that I'm doing the right thing. Not changing sound or anything per se, but I'm changing. So that then the music's going to change. Yeah.
Yeah, don't ever get me started on new records because I can't wait for that. I mean, listening to Inner Child Work Part 2. By the way, let me know how we're doing on time. I want to make sure I'm respectful about
Sure,
that.
sure. Yeah,
Um,
I'm good till like just before 11. So
yeah, okay, we're on Central Time, so yay. Now, as I was listening to Inner Child Work Part 2 on repeat, really, you know, things that artists that came to mind, the yeahs, Tori Amos, Kate Bush, Sharon Van Eaton, Faye Webster, and there's this Austin-based band that I don't think you've heard, called Color Candy. I'm listening to, like, these artists are just coming into my head, but the point of me is telling you that is that you're standing out from that convoluted crowd of the singer-songwriter, because it's hitting me in ways no other singer-songwriters are doing it. And there's this
interesting.
level of authenticity within you, especially, I mean, we talked about your story. I mean, if that isn't authentic enough, I don't know what is. From Best Hands to Believer, and I absolutely love the composition for Picasso Blue. I wish that was a single, if that's not a single already. Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe.
You know how when you watch a movie and you go back and you catch certain parts that you didn't catch the first time, right? I kept going back and listening to certain parts over and over again. And whether it's folk, indie, pop, maybe even some country thrown in there, you said you wanted to take the songs to a more universal level. I think you're doing more than that, Alicia. Walk me through this. I wonder, how much do things change from when you first began composing on your songs to where you end up finishing it? In other words, did you know, like, this EP was going to have two parts from day one? Because this is a very unique way to release it, and it works. It fucking works.
Thank you. I definitely didn't actually no, I did know that it would have two parts, but I had no idea what songs were going to be on what part. So I didn't write it going like these feel like part one and these feel like part two.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, in terms of, the maybe a universal inflection on those. Um, I mean, Lincoln and I wrote a lot of those together, um, and I think a lot of these, like I walked in as a singer songwriter, but he was really able to bring kind of that um, indie, maybe some more indie rock energy, and then for whatever reason, the structure of, like, if he wrote a chord progression and I would write a melody and lyric over it, it just kind of like the pop sensibility in me really got to just speak. And when I say pop, I mean, like, James Taylor was popular music.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by that. Not like a long form. I mean, writing something just a little more direct. So yeah, I got a shout out to Lincoln for
Uh,
helping me do
Uh,
that.
I'm going to talk about Lincoln here in a second, but I want to talk about your voice, because there's this level of comfort in your voice when I hear you sing. You have this way of lulling the listener in, and as soon as they are drawn to it, it like hits you. It's devastating. It's a good thing. That's what I mean. It's like,
That's awesome.
and you can't really describe it because you have to listen to it for like I can't wait for my because we have an iOS staff. I had them listen to this EP with me and they were just like, is she local? Can we bring like can she be on tour? I was like, oh, hold on a second, let me talk to her first, because it's not just me. There are people around here who I presented this album to. They're loving it, and when putting this all together, I feel like Inner Child Work Part 1 and Part 2, this could be like one complete LP because that's what it sounds like when I listen to it top to bottom that way. That's the way I did it. I also feel like you've also, found your stride with these last two records. I don't know if this can serve as a sneak peek into or a representation into what's to come on future releases, but how do you feel? Do you feel like you still like, okay, I think I got it. This is where I want to be. Let's go.
I think that there definitely, and I think that probably what's to come is going to
Hmm.
be um, a little more singular. Not, but I don't mean not universal, but it'll be a little more singular in the sense of, um, for my next record, I'm writing for it, and um, it a lot of the songs, I'm doing co-writing for sure, but I'm walking in pretty much kind of with with like a huge chunk of it conceptually and lyrically, sometimes melodically or musically, like ready to bring into the person. So it's a little bit less of maybe someone else's voice mixing with mine. It's a little more
Hmm.
Alicia.
And
Yeah.
the sound itself was a big part of this record that I really loved, and this is where I want to get to with Lincoln Parish. I'm an audiophile these days, Alicia. I'm very picky on how I want my music to sound, the way I want it to sound. Shit, I didn't have to mess with much on this. This was just it was so on point, and it also had a mature sound from Brave Bird, I feel like, even your first EP. And this was produced in Nashville by none other than, of course, songwriter Lincoln Parrish. For people who don't know, Cage the Elephant. I remember seeing them live a few years back. Shout out to him. You know, um, Talk about him for a minute here, because I'm sure that you have that sense of comfortability in the studio knowing you had someone like Lincoln working on this record. Not only that, you may have found the person you want to work with going forward. Is that fair to assess?
Say that again. So I found
You
someone I'm
found
comfortable
yeah, going forward working on records together, because I feel like there's this chemistry between you and Lincoln. He knows it's one thing to write everything on paper, right? But it's another thing to get it out on how you want it to sound, and I feel like Lincoln did that.
Yeah, I mean Lincoln is incredible, and one of my favorite parts about Lincoln, we were actually just writing together last week, and I love it. I love the song we did, but we just have such an incredibly like freakishly like almost wordless process, and it's so fast. I mean, he can literally like I don't think there's been maybe like one or two times he's ever presented me with an idea that I was like, I don't think I can like vibe with this completely. But like 99% of the time I'm like, oh yeah, I have the lyrics and I know what I need to say and sing over this and how the melody's going to go. But um yeah, I can't like say it enough how lucky I feel to know someone and have someone in my creative life that I get to do that with. And I was kind of freaking out when I saw him last time that I didn't say this to him, but I was like, oh my God, I've known you now. Now when we're in 2023, now we're like going into our third year of knowing and making things. Like that's weird to me because it
And
feels like yesterday.
speaking of freaking out, John Paul White. Oh man, who's known for he's Civil Wars, great band. He's featured on that song "Young." I wondered if there was that, when you were doing the song with them, when you're performing with them and you were structuring the song, was there that sense of, okay, this is John Paul White. I kind of got to meet him here. Was there that competitive nature between you two? Like, how was that like, bringing someone else into your world of making music together? Because that really added another element to, I feel like, your music, having someone like John.
Yeah, I think anyone who's worked with John Paul would not feel that anything competitive with him because you just kind of know you're in the presence of some kind of sage dark knight and you fucking love him for that and you just listen and you go I mean it's collaborative of course
Yeah.
but you just I mean I feel like the philosophy of John Paul as a human is like some one of my favorite
Yeah,
entities to subscribe to. There's a gentleness about him, and he's soft spoken, but yet this like pretty reverberating power that resonates out of him.
yeah. Speaking of power, I our hair game's on point, by the way. I can't help but mention that. It's pretty awesome. Um, Now between writing and then structuring the songs and the production process, like we just talked about, keep all this in mind as I'm asking this because the lyricism throughout Inner Child Work Part 1 and Part 2, of course, I feel a lot of this comes from your personal experience too, right? Because the bulk of it deals with sudden changes in life's discussion to self-awareness, new beginnings. You're from LA to Nashville. First off, I can't imagine, like, I don't know if it was scary to make that big of a move because it was really, and it was the best for you, and I can already sense that the way you're talking to me, the way you're talking about your music, the way you're describing these people. I know it was the right move. All right, first off. So and you have a song like Young, like we just talked about. It focuses on the acceptance of the aging process. Here's why that's important to someone like me, Alicia. I just went back to school this semester. Okay. I got 11 hours left on my bachelor's, and I'm like, I held that off for so long. And I'm in that classroom. This is my first week in class, right? I'm there, and all these like kids, right? Who, I'm going back to school, right? I'm in my 30s, and they're these younger kids, and this song Young really resonated with me. It's like you're trying to fit in, you're trying to belong, you're trying to meet them at that level. But Young, I feel like it's really about authenticity. Just move past that. Fuck that. Like, you don't have to stay young. Just you can still. I'm an old soul. I get told that a lot by people. No matter how old I am. Maybe if I'm 50, I'll be like 100, something like that. I don't know. But a song like Young that focuses on the acceptance of the aging process. So that meant to someone like me. You have a song like Best Hands, right? Which is about the frustration of being stuck in unhealthy habits and patterns. When you write something like this, Alicia, right? I can see you're adjusting your seat, so get ready for this. A sense of therapy when you're translating all these feelings into something productive like this. I begin to think of the tangibles of a theme or a message to your music, one or multiple. How important are themes to you, Alicia? Is that a big component to songwriting for someone like you? A very long-winded, question, but it's I
How
know,
important are themes?
yeah,
I would say I don't think about them at all. I definitely don't try for any themes. I think that naturally any record, any album's going to have themes though, because it's a snapshot of time in someone's life, and it should be, and that's why records should be released, at some reasonable time frame from when you were writing it.
yeah.
Not that you don't have a song that's old or something that you would not put on a record, but like, yeah, I think they should be a snapshot in time, and so I think um, by default the themes just show up.
And that's really cool that you said that because it's, I mentioned how there's that sense of therapy, but I hope that whoever is listening to this podcast, I know you're writing it. I'm sure you get a sense of release when you actually, put your thoughts and feelings onto something like this. But your music, your message, it helps whoever's listening them as well, because you went through so much. And I hope that whatever you've been through, the way you're writing your music, it helps other people who are listening to it. It's already helping someone like me, for example. So I really hope that's what it is. And you
I
meant
mean, that's
you took it right out of my mouth, by the way, because I was going to ask if you see it as a snapshot of where you are in a certain time in your life, and I think that's a yes. And I know we're approaching the last part of our conversation. I can't believe it's already been an hour. Sorry to take up so much of your time. This
all
was,
good, man.
and I know we've covered a good amount on this awesome conversation. By the way, thank you again for sharing your story and talking about who Alicia Blue is all about, from the different perspectives and the experiences in your timeline that you have taken and which we've discussed about, right? You're still young and growing, but you've already experienced plenty within that timeline, Alicia, that touring that you just did, your growing fan base, the recognition from, these outlets and working with amazing producers and collaborating with other talented artists. before you got here, it was all about being a soul singer, you mentioned it. And now you're a turned poet and folk singer. I feel and I hope that, you continue to evolve, and it's also an extension of who you are, this album. I'm excited to see where you go from here. This is definitely something that you have a passion for. And the truth is for what I'm seeing is that you're seeing results. That's also important too. And I'm riding out to this question here, have your aspirations, Alicia, as a musician, hell, as a human being, have they changed or evolved since when you first started performing in the industry? Like, do you see things differently today?
Definitely. I would say in the beginning, there was such a pressure to make it, and by that pressure comes from coming from a super working class family, and like, how am I gonna survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come. I mean, yeah, I think deep down every artist would be lying if they didn't, maybe think it could be cool to be on the cover of Rolling Stone, but of course I thought that. But I think um, when you put the pressure of um, anything material in front of your true self, or not even in front of your true self, when you put it in your mind and let it take up any amount of space, and the space isn't used for your creative, like, development, that's the
Mm-hmm.
word. That's a huge waste of time. You know, I am lucky that I don't have any of that anymore. There is no part of my brain that thinks about that, and largely got to thank the people who've helped me get to this place where I can do this, completely, mostly, full time, with the hours in my day. And otherwise, it wouldn't be possible because it takes time. It takes time to, you have to be with yourself for every day, all day long. And, you know, uh, so yeah. And in terms of, I think there's been some real sobering moments of going like, okay, my hero is like Woody Guthrie's my hero, and not that I made inner child work and was like, would Woody Guthrie like this? Because I don't know that he would, or would Bob Dylan love this, or maybe not. Um, but I think more recently, just kind of the humanitarian aspect of some of my heroes, and like Joan Baez, and um, you know what Woody had to say, or even Bob had to say. Not that I'm going to become a protest singer or anything like that, but I think there has been recently a sobering element of like, okay, like next year, next record, you're going to have to say what you need to say, and you have to say it. You can't be afraid to
Mm-hmm.
say it. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think it's also important to, celebrate your successes along the way too, and you're doing that. I feel like, it's also easy to lose track of yourself. The more successful you are, you kind of lose yourself along the way. It's also important to kind of push everything back sometimes and look at it from the outside and go back in with a refocused perspective. I've done
Yeah.
that once, and it was just mind blowing to me. And I feel like it's like this is the most authentic you that I feel like I'm sitting in front of, and I can't wait till you come to Texas and perform. That's what we got to do. And you know, and I know we got about a few minutes left. You know, I do want to say, if you weren't a musician, like something I think about also all the time, what would you be doing right now, Alicia? Do you ever think about that?
I mean, I would definitely be a write. I mean, I'd be writing,
Yeah.
like a, but if that wasn't, if I couldn't be making publishing book, like poetry books and whatnot, um, I would probably be like studying some kind of like uh,
We need a drummer for
the
this.
science meets the mysterious, metaphysical elements of something. I don't know. Maybe maybe go. I don't know, something like not be a monk, but something where I get to just be alone.
Hey,
Yeah.
going to the woods. So there's like there's a park right next to where I live. And if you go past it, there's like just these. If you ever seen The Village, that's what it looks like. Like M. Night Shyamalan style. It's kind of scary.
Oh,
But
cool.
but when you go in there, I'm kind of like that. It doesn't seem like that as I'm talking to you. I'm not. Doesn't seem like I'm someone who just likes to get away. I love when it comes to that. I love to just be by myself. Hell, even just in the woods, you really find that sense of peace. You can almost find yourself in there. But Alicia, man, I gotta get you back on this podcast at some point in the future. Maybe we
For
can do
having
it.
me on.
Maybe we can do it in the future. And by the way, let me know if you ever want to do like a small tour like down here in the South. And real
Sure.
quick, real quick, when I went to Nashville, I don't know if you've ever been to Texas. When I went to Nashville, right? I went with my best friend back in September. I loved the place. I loved the city. Um, and when I got there, you guys, what do you call Nashville? Nashvillians? Is that I don't know. I don't know
Uh-huh.
what the
A
what the
Nashville.
Nashville. Okay, Dallasites, right? That's what we call ourselves.
You
You,
people.
we people, you people. You guys are more Texan than we are. I get there on the first day. I'm not kidding. People are wearing like actual like cowboy hats. They
Oh
don't do
yeah.
that. They don't do that here. We went to the Dolly Parton like hotel, like the roof, and it was just I
Oh yeah.
forgot where I was. I'm like, this is supposed to be Texas. Why isn't this anything like? And it was just a regular weekend, and people are just and some people we met in Nashville weren't kept. Yeah, I've been here all my life, and even their accents like this, talk like this. Nothing's like that here in Texas. I'm just saying. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, by the way. I've been living in
Yeah.
Texas all my
That.
life, I love Texans. Don't get me wrong, but you guys are more Texas than we are. I was telling my friend that she came here from Austin, and we road trip together. So I don't know if you've seen that yet. So come to Texas, figure that out, and then let me know what you think. If there you do see a dynamic difference between the two, because it's there. Also
Yeah.
barbecue. Barbecue is also one thing we tried. So anyway,
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like I could go about that for a while. But Alicia, again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Sure. Thank
Let's
you.
stay in touch. If you ever, of course, like I said, if you were to come down here, I do know a lot of the show bookings, like the people who run it, the who own the
Awesome.
venues. I would love to help you book a show here. Okay, so just
Thank you
please
so
let me
much,
know.
man.
People they
Honored.
need Alicia Blue down here. Okay.
I'd be
Um,
honored. Yeah, I love that.
do you have any last words? Just any shout outs? Anything else you'd like to mention or plug in for Inner Child Work Part 2? But before we finish things up, maybe
Um,
a new music video or something like that.
yeah, no, no, I think we're all good. Just, please stay tuned on all of the things at Alicia Blue Music. And you'll hear all the release dates for the web store will be up with all kinds of goodies and hopefully some shows near you. That would be amazing to say hello to you guys.
Alicia, I'm really proud of you. I know we just met, but I feel like we gotta, we've been like friends forever at this point, since considering how much we've shared. And I hope everyone, who's listening, buy Inner Child Work Part 2. Listen to it, stream it, because this drops sooner than you know on Magnetic Moon. I can't wait for people to hear it. And you can listen to the podcast on all major podcast streams out there. Check us out on interviewunderfire.com. Alicia, much love. Thank you again. Nothing but the best for you from here on out. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Nashville. I hope I'll visit someday soon. I'll let you know when I visit too. Because I got to
Me
get
too,
back.
man. That
Yeah,
sounds
I
great.
was only there for like 3 days, but we got to be there for long. My brother lives in Vanderbilt, so obviously I have to be out
Awesome.
there. But let's stay in touch. I'll talk to you next time, and take care of yourself. All right, peace.
Bye.
Bye.
There's a lover, a sister, buried beneath. There's a whisper of something no one can see. There's a hunter, a chaser. What does it mean that I am all of these things? I am all of these things. I want it faster, I want it faster. Don't slow it down, I don't wanna slow down now. I want it faster, I want it faster. Don't slow it down, I don't wanna slow down now. I want it faster. Kill the killer, kill the killer.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Interview Under Fire podcast. If you guys liked what you heard, please subscribe and share our channel. And please leave a 5-star review, as that helps us tremendously. If you'd like to check out more, visit www.interviewunderfire.com or our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And finally, we want to thank you all for the support you've been giving us. Keep it burning.